The rain wasn't just falling that night, it was attacking the windows of our mansion in Pacific Bluffs, California. Inside, the storm felt even bigger, trapped within the walls of the fancy living room. My father, Arthur, was shouting, his voice booming louder than any thunderclap outside. He stood across from me, his face red with anger, his words cutting deep. "You are throwing everything away, Scarlett. Everything your mother and I worked for a nobody, a simple mechanic." The way he said mechanic made it sound like the dirtiest word in the world. I was 19, standing there in a simple white dress Ryan had told me I looked beautiful in earlier that day. My heart was pounding, a mix of fear and pure fury. My eyes, the same brown as my mother's, were burning with tears I refused to let fall. "He has a name, Dad. It's Ryan, and he loves me. Not the money, not the house, not the name. Just me." My voice trembled, but I stood my ground. Arthur walked over to the polished bar, his movements jerky. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, his hand shaking slightly. He was 45, a big, imposing man with gray at his temples that somehow made him look even more important, more in control. "Love?" he scoffed, turning back to face me. "What does a kid like that know about love? He sees a rich girl, naive and easy to fool, and he's latching on. I know his type, her Scarlett. They're after what you have. You don't know him at all." I took a step towards him, my voice rising. "You never even tried to. Ryan's been working since he was 14 years old. He helps take care of his sick mother. He studies at night to try and make a better life for himself. I don't care about his hard luck story." Arthur roared, slamming his glass down on the table hard enough to make me jump. "What I care about is my only daughter, the heir to everything I've built from nothing, lowering herself to date some man who gets his hands dirty changing oil." Outside, Ryan sat in his old, reliable car. He was 22, waiting patiently, worried sick about the argument he could hear even through the closed doors. He wore a clean, but clearly used, shirt. His face was tight with concern. Inside, the fight escalated. My father laid down the law. "This ends now, Scarlett. I'm changing your flight. You're leaving for London tomorrow. The university there will accept you midterm. You'll meet people from your own world." I shook my head, backing away. "No, I'm not going to London. I'm not breaking up with Ryan. You can't make me." Arthur's face turned cold, like stone. "As long as you live under my roof, eating my food, wearing clothes I pay for, you will do exactly as I say. Or perhaps you'd prefer to live like his people, with no security, no future, struggling just to get by." Something inside me snapped. Years of quiet frustration, of feeling like a possession instead of a person, boiled over. "Is that all you care about, Dad? Money and status?" My voice shook, but the words came out clear. "Mom would be so ashamed of what you've become." Bringing up my mother, Hope, who had passed away 4 years ago, hit him hard. For a second, his face went pale, a flicker of pain in his eyes, but then the anger came back, hotter than before. "Don't you dare use your mother against me. Everything I've done for you. Now that she's gone, it's my responsibility to make sure you don't ruin your life." "No, Dad," I said, my voice calmer now, but firm. "Everything you've done has been for yourself, for your pride, for your image. Mom taught me that people matter, not their bank accounts." I walked over to a shelf and picked up a small photo. It was an old picture of my father, looking young and happy, standing with his parents in front of a small, simple house. "You're ashamed of where you came from, and it's turned you into someone I don't even recognize." Arthur snatched the frame from my hand and slammed it back down. "Enough. Go to your room. We will discuss this in the morning when you've calmed down. My decision is final." I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze. "No, Dad, this is the last night I spend in this house." He actually laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. "And where exactly do you plan on going? To his little shack? You're going to trade all this comfort, for a life of hardship?" I'm trading this cold, empty luxury for a little dignity and respect, I said, grabbing a small bag I'd packed just in case. I'd rather be loved and love someone back in a small house than live in this beautiful tomb of appearances. The laughter died on his face. He finally understood I wasn't bluffing. His anger shifted to a panicked worry. Scarlett, you're not thinking clearly. It's late. It's pouring rain. Let's talk tomorrow. There is no tomorrow for this, Dad, I said, opening the heavy front door. The wind and rain rushed in. You just told me I'll never be anything next to Ryan. But you know what? Next to you, I haven't been anything for a very long time. Arthur lunged forward, reaching for me. Scarlett, don't do this. You can't make it on your own. Goodbye, Dad. I ran out into the downpour. The rain instantly soaked my dress, plastering my hair to my face. Ryan was out of the car in a second, pulling me under his jacket, hurrying me inside the car. Arthur stood in the doorway, his large frame looking suddenly small and defeated. Scarlett, get back here right now. His voice was swallowed by the storm. If you walk out that door, don't you ever come back. Inside the car, shivering but safe, I looked back at the mansion. At my father, a lonely figure in the light spilling from the doorway. Let's go, Ryan, please, I whispered, my voice thick with tears. He started the car, and we drove away, leaving the mansion, the storm, and my father alone with his pride and the echoing silence. 4 years before that night, my world had already shattered once. It was a beautiful spring Sunday, the kind of day meant for sunshine and happiness. My mother, Hope, was driving her bright red convertible down the coastal highway. She was 39, full of life and laughter, coming home from a charity event where she had sung and charmed everyone she met. I was 15, sitting beside her, humming along to the radio, taking pictures with my camera. When I grow up, I want to sing just like you, Mom, I said, the wind whipping my hair around my face. She smiled, that wide, beautiful smile that made her eyes sparkle and little dimples appear. Oh, my love, you already sing better than me. You have a gift, a natural talent that I had to work years to find. Dad says singing isn't a real job, though. He says it's just a hobby. Her smile softened a little. Your father, he's afraid, honey. Afraid you'll have to face the struggles I did before he came into my life. But you know what? She reached over and gently brushed my hair back from my face. A life without passion is like a song with no melody. Just then, everything changed. A truck, moving way too fast, swerved into our lane. Mom tried to turn the wheel, but there wasn't enough time. The crash was loud, violent, a sickening crunch of metal and breaking glass. Then, silence. A silence that fell over our lives like a heavy shroud and never truly lifted. I woke up the next day in a hospital bed. My body ached. My arm was in a cast. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the emptiness I felt. My mother was gone. Just like that. The light in our lives was put out. Her death didn't just break my heart. It broke my father. He wasn't the same man anymore. He buried himself in his work, in making more money, in expanding his business empire. It was like he thought if he just had enough wealth, he could somehow build a wall high enough to keep out the pain, to fill the huge hole she left behind. But it didn't work. He became cold, distant, lost in his own world of numbers and deals. The mansion, already large, felt even bigger, colder, more like a museum of his success than a home where a family lived and loved. He couldn't stand music after she died. It reminded him too much of her joy, of the life we'd had before. He had her piano moved out of the living room, her guitar put away, her sheet music boxed up. He told me to stop singing. "It's time to focus on serious things. Scarlett," he'd say, his voice flat. "Your future, your studies, business." But music was my only real connection to her now. When I was alone in my room, I would softly hum the songs she taught me, the lullabies she sang to me when I was little. Sometimes, I'd sneak into the dusty old music room, unused since she was gone, and just run my fingers over the keys of her piano, remembering her hands on them, remembering her laughter. My father's rule about no music just made me hold on to it tighter. It was my secret comfort, my quiet rebellion in a house that had become so lonely and silent. The years leading up to that stormy night felt like living in a beautiful cage. I had everything money could buy: fancy clothes, expensive schools, trips abroad. But I was starving for real connection, for warmth, for the mother who understood me completely, and the father who used to smile and play with me. He started planning every step of my life, choosing the schools I should go to, trying to pick my friends, deciding where I'd go to college. He wanted me to be perfect, polished, just like the expensive art on the walls. He wanted me to marry someone from our world, someone with the right family name, the right background, the right bank account. He wanted me to be a perfect reflection of his success, not a person with my own heart, my own dreams, my own voice. That's why Ryan was such a shock to his carefully planned world. Ryan, with his honest hands, his kind eyes, his worn-out but clean clothes. He saw me, Scarlett, not the Montero heir. He loved my messy hair after a long day, my goofy jokes, my quiet moments of sadness. He loved my voice, even when I just sang softly to myself. He was everything my father wasn't, everything my father had forgotten how to be. And that's why my father couldn't stand him. Ryan was a living reminder of the simple, real things my father had traded away for money and status. He was a threat to the perfect, controlled world Arthur Montero had built around himself. And so, the stage was set for the night I had to choose between my father's fortune and my own soul, a choice that would change everything. Walking out that door into the pouring rain was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. The rain felt like it was washing away everything I had ever known, every bit of my old life. But getting into Ryan's warm, slightly rusty car felt like finally finding a safe harbor. He didn't say much at first, just took my hand and held it tight. He knew I had given up everything, walked away from a life of comfort most people only dreamed of. But he never made me feel like a burden. He just looked at me with those kind eyes and loved me. Starting over was tough. Really, truly tough. My father did exactly what he said he would. He cut me off completely. No money, no phone calls, nothing. It hurt more than I expected, more than I let anyone see. It wasn't about the money itself. It was about the finality of it, the feeling of being completely cast out, disowned by my own father. Ryan worked incredibly hard. He took on extra shifts at the garage, sometimes working late into the night. I found a job waiting tables at a busy diner downtown. We rented a tiny apartment in a neighborhood that was a world away from the manicured lawns and huge houses of Pacific Bluffs. It was small, maybe 400 square feet total, but it was ours. We painted the walls a cheerful yellow together, found a beat-up but comfy couch at a yard sale, and learned to cook simple, cheap meals that tasted amazing because we made them together. Every single dollar we earned was hard-won. Paying the bills each month felt like a major victory. There were days when I felt overwhelmed, when I missed the ease of my old life, when I was scared about how we would make it. But Ryan was always there, steady and strong, his belief in us never wavering. He never complained about the long hours or the lack of money. He just kept working, kept loving me, kept building our life with me, piece by piece. That first year was a struggle, no doubt about it. But it also showed me how strong I could be. I learned how to stretch a dollar, how to fix things around the apartment, how to find happiness in the simple moments. Watching the sunset from our fire escape, laughing together over a cheap pizza, just being together. I learned that real dignity wasn't about how much money you had in the bank, but about working hard, treating people right, and facing whatever life threw at you with courage. Ryan taught me that, not by preaching, but just by living his life that way. Then, something truly wonderful happened. I found out I was pregnant. At first, we were scared, naturally. How would we manage with a baby? Money was already tight. But that fear lasted only a moment before it was completely washed away by pure, overwhelming joy. We were going to have a baby. We were going to be a family, our own family. When our daughter was born, it felt like the sun finally broke through the clouds that had been hanging over me since my mother died. We named her Hope, after my mom. Holding her for the first time, looking into her tiny face, I felt a connection to my mother that was almost physical. It was like a piece of her was back with me, a living reminder of her love and light. Little Hope was the brightest spot in our lives. She filled our small apartment with laughter, with baby sounds, with a kind of love that made everything else fade away. She didn't need fancy toys or expensive clothes. All she needed was our love, our time, our presence, and we had an endless supply of that. Our life was simple, maybe even humble compared to the world I grew up in. But it was rich in ways my father couldn't possibly understand. We had each other. We had love. We had our beautiful daughter, Hope. We built our life from scratch, brick by brick, fueled by love, hard work, and a fierce determination to make it work. It wasn't the life my father had planned for me, the life he thought I deserved because of his money. It was the life I chose, the life I built with the man I loved. And it was good. It was real. It was ours. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Ryan kept working hard at the garage, slowly building up his reputation. People trusted him because he was honest and did good work. I continued waiting tables, and our little Hope grew bigger and brighter every single day. In the evenings, after we'd put Hope to bed, I would sometimes sing softly to myself. Just old songs, the ones my mother used to sing. It was a quiet comfort, a way to feel close to her memory in the stillness of the night. One day, I met a neighbor, a sweet woman named Maria. Her little boy, Andrew, was very sick. He needed a special, expensive medical treatment that their health insurance wouldn't fully cover. Maria was heartbroken, desperate, trying everything she could to raise the money. My heart went out to her. We didn't have much extra money ourselves, but I desperately wanted to help in some way. I remembered how my mother's singing had touched people, how she sometimes used her voice to help others. An idea started to form in my mind. What if I sang? Not just to myself, but for others. Maybe I could use my voice to help raise money for Andrew. I started small. I sang at a fundraiser at the local church, then at a community fair in the park. People seemed to really connect with my voice. They told me it was clear, full of emotion, that it made them feel something. Some people asked if I had any recordings, if I sang anywhere regularly. It was surprising, a little scary to put myself out there, but also exciting. It felt like I was finally using the gift my mother always said I had, using it for something good. Ryan was my biggest fan. He came to every little performance he could, cheering me on from the back. He'd tell me how proud he was, how my voice reminded him of the strength and beauty he saw in me. I decided to try posting videos of myself singing online. Just simple videos, recorded in our living room with my phone. To my surprise, they started getting views, then comments, then shares. People from all over the country were watching and listening. They weren't just hearing my voice. They were connecting with the emotion in the songs, with the story of Andrew that I shared. It wasn't about becoming famous. It was about sharing something beautiful, something real, and maybe, just maybe, making a difference in Andrew's life. The small amounts of money I earned from these performances, the donations people sent after hearing Andrew's story, it all went towards his medical treatment. It felt incredibly good to use my voice for a purpose much bigger than myself. Then, one day, I got an email that seemed too good to be true. It was from someone who worked at a big, fancy resort down the coast, the kind of place my father used to take us. They had seen my videos online, heard about the fundraising I was doing for Andrew, and were impressed. They were hosting a special gala event, and they wanted me to perform. It was a paid gig, a real opportunity to sing on a much bigger stage, in front of a different kind of audience. It felt like a huge step, bigger than anything I'd done before. It was a chance to reach more people, to share my music more widely. I was incredibly nervous. My hands shook reading the email, but I knew I had to do it. I had to sing for Hope, my daughter, who was the reason for everything. I had to sing for Andrew, to help his family. I had to sing for the life I had built. And maybe, just maybe, I had to sing for the memory of the mother who first taught me the power of a song. Little did I know, that night on that stage, my voice would reach someone I never expected to see again. Someone who needed to hear that song more than anyone in the world. The email arrived like a whisper from a forgotten life, landing in my inbox amidst bills and newsletters. It was an invitation, a request, from a world I had deliberately left behind. A prestigious resort on the coast, hosting a major gala, wanted me to perform. Me, Scarlett. The woman who served coffee and changed diapers, whose stage had been the living room rug, whose audience was usually just my daughter. They had seen my videos online, heard about the small fundraisers I'd done for Andrew, and something in my voice, in the raw emotion I poured into those simple recordings, had resonated with them. The offer was substantial, far more than I could earn in months of juggling jobs. It meant a real chance to help Andrew get the treatment he desperately needed, to ease the crushing worry from Maria's face. But it was more than just the money. It was validation. It was a sign that the quiet strength I had found, the voice I had almost lost, was worth something beyond the walls of our small apartment. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and deeply humbling all at once. Could I really stand on a stage in front of hundreds of strangers, people from the kind of world my father inhabited, and share my heart through song? Choosing the setlist was a journey through my own history. Each song held a memory, a feeling, but one song stood apart, not just a memory, but a piece of my very soul. It was the folk song my mother had taught me, the one she played on her piano, the one that filled our home with a quiet, beautiful sadness after my brother, Pablo, died. It was the song I had barely managed to sing through tears at her funeral, the song that felt like her presence, her comfort, her enduring love. It wasn't a grand song, not a showstopper, but it was the most honest, most important song I knew. It was a song about resilience, about finding light in the deepest shadows, about the enduring power of love and memory. Singing it felt like an act of defiance against the years of silence, a reclamation of the part of me that my father had tried to suppress. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I had to sing that song that night. It was the reason I was there, even if the audience didn't know it. It was for my mother, for Hope, for the life I had built from the ground up. The days leading up to the gala were a whirlwind of frantic energy and quiet reflection. Ryan, bless his steady heart, was my anchor. He helped me practice, listening patiently as I stumbled over lyrics or my voice wavered with nerves. He reminded me of the strength he saw in me every day, the quiet determination that had seen me through the hardest times. He was proud, his eyes shining with a belief in me that sometimes felt stronger than my own. We talked about the past, about the night I left, about the years of silence. It felt strange, preparing to step back into the periphery of the world I had fled, even if only for one night. We found a simple, elegant dress. Nothing like the elaborate gowns I used to wear to my father's galas, but something that felt like me now. Strong, simple, beautiful in its own way. Looking in the mirror, I didn't see the scared girl who ran away. I saw a woman who had faced storms and found her own sunshine. Leaving hope with Maria was the hardest part. My heart ached to be away from her, even for a few hours, but knowing she was safe and loved allowed me to focus. The drive to the resort felt like traveling through time. The familiar coastline, the manicured lawns, the sheer scale of the wealth on display. It was all exactly as I remembered, yet utterly foreign. I was returning to the edge of that world, not as Arthur Montero's daughter, but as Scarlett, the singer, the mother, the survivor. I was bringing my life, my story, my voice, to a place that had once represented everything I had rejected. I was nervous, my hands clammy, my stomach in knots. But beneath the fear was a quiet resolve. I had a song to sing, a story to tell, and a purpose that felt bigger than any stage fright. I was stepping into the light, not knowing that in that glittering room, a pair of eyes I hadn't seen in 15 years would be watching, and a heart I thought was closed forever would finally be ready to listen. The air felt thick with anticipation, a silent promise of a moment that would change everything. The grand ballroom of the resort shimmered under the glow of countless chandeliers. It was a scene of effortless elegance, men in sharp tuxedos, women in glittering gowns, the low hum of sophisticated conversation, punctuated by polite laughter, and the clinking of champagne flutes. Standing backstage, the contrast between this world and my everyday life felt stark, almost absurd. I smoothed the fabric of my dress, my palms damp, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It felt like a dream, or perhaps a test. Could I truly belong here, even just for a few songs? The previous performer finished to a ripple of polite applause. My turn. My name was announced, a formal introduction that felt strangely detached from the person I was. I walked onto the stage, the lights hitting me like a physical force, momentarily blinding me to the sea of faces beyond the footlights. I found my spot by the microphone, took a deep, steadying breath, and nodded to the musicians. The opening notes of the first song began, a familiar melody that helped ground me. I started to sing, my voice trembling slightly at first, then finding its strength as I lost myself in the music. I sang songs about love, about loss, about the quiet moments of life. The audience listened, some with genuine interest, others with polite indifference. It was fine. I wasn't here for accolades. I was here to sing, to share the music that had carried me through so much. And then came the moment for that song. I paused, taking a moment to compose myself. "This next song," I said, my voice soft but clear, carrying through the microphone, "is a very old song. It was my mother's favorite. I didn't elaborate, didn't share the depth of its meaning to me, not yet." The simple piano introduction began, the same notes my mother's fingers used to coax from the keys. As I began to sing, the air in the vast ballroom seemed to shift. The background chatter, the clinking glasses, the small distractions, they all faded away. My voice, pure and filled with the weight of years of unspoken emotion, carried the simple, profound lyrics. I sang about the rain falling, about the darkness of the night, about the tiny flicker of light that guides you home. I sang about enduring, about holding on to hope when everything feels lost. I wasn't just singing words. I was singing my life. I was singing about the storm that drove me away, the darkness I had faced, the light I had found in Ryan and hope. I was singing my mother's legacy, her strength, her love that still echoed within me. Somewhere in the room, a man sat at a table, his mind miles away, focused on the intricacies of a business deal. Arthur Montero was a man of routine, of control, of carefully constructed walls. He rarely attended events like this, preferring quiet dinners. But this gala was important for his company. He wasn't listening to the music, his attention fixed on the conversation at his table. But then, a sound pierced through his focus. A voice, a melody, a specific cadence that struck something deep within him, something buried under years of work and regret. He paused mid-sentence, his eyes, which had been scanning the room with detached politeness, suddenly snapping towards the stage. He saw the woman standing there, a spotlight illuminating her face. The angle, the way she held her head, the familiar curve of her cheekbone. It was impossible. It couldn't be. But then she sang a phrase, a specific inflection, a note held just so, and a wave of recognition, sharp and painful, washed over him. It was the song. That song. The one Hope used to sing. The one Scarlett had sung. Her voice raw with grief at her mother's funeral. His breath caught in his throat. The business deal. The people around him. The glittering room. They all vanished. There was only the stage, the woman, and the voice that had haunted his silent nights for 15 years. He saw the emotion on her face, the way her eyes seemed to hold a universe of pain and resilience. It was her, his daughter. The daughter he had disowned. The daughter he had lost. Singing her mother's song. Time truly stopped for Arthur Montero. The world outside that melody ceased to exist. He was frozen, captivated, his heart pounding with a mixture of disbelief, agony, and a fragile, terrifying hope. His daughter, the one he thought was gone forever, was standing right there, her voice a beacon cutting through the darkness of his regret. The last note of the song faded, leaving behind a profound silence that felt heavier, more significant than any applause. I stood by the microphone, my chest tight with emotion, tears blurring my vision. The song had taken me on a journey, back through the years, connecting me to my mother, to my struggles, to the quiet strength I had found. When the applause finally broke the silence, it was different this time. Louder, more heartfelt, filled with an energy that hadn't been there before. I blinked back the tears, trying to focus on the faces in the audience, offering a grateful smile. And then I saw him. He was standing up, his chair pushed back, halfway down the room. Arthur. My father. He looked older, the lines on his face deeper, his hair significantly grayer, but there was no mistaking him. His face was a mask of raw, exposed emotion, shock, pain, disbelief, and a vulnerability I had never seen before. His eyes, usually so controlled and distant, were fixed on me, wide and filled with tears. A jolt, like an electric shock, went through me. My breath hitched. My own tears, which I had been holding back, spilled over, hot and fast, blurring my vision further. He was here. After 15 years of silence, of a chasm that had felt insurmountable, he was here, standing in the crowd, looking at me with that expression. And then, he started walking. He moved through the stunned guests, his gaze never leaving mine. The murmurs of the crowd followed him, a wave of surprise and curiosity. I stood frozen on the stage, the microphone still in my hand, my heart hammering, a whirlwind of emotions tearing through me. Shock, fear, longing, and an overwhelming sense of the surreal. He reached the edge of the stage, his hand outstretched, trembling slightly. I stepped down the few steps, my legs feeling unsteady, and met him. And then, after 15 long, silent years, he pulled me into his arms. It was a desperate, bone-crushing embrace, filled with the weight of everything left unsaid, everything lost. He held me tightly, his body shaking with sobs. I clung to him, burying my face in his shoulder, the tears I had held back for so long finally pouring out, grief and relief mingling in a torrent of emotion. "Scarlett," he choked out, his voice broken, muffled against my hair. "Oh, Scarlett, it's you. My God, it's really you." We stood there, two figures locked in an embrace on the edge of a stage, the elegant gala forgotten around us. It was just a father and daughter, reunited by a song, by a voice that had finally reached across the years of silence. When we finally pulled apart, his face was streaked with tears, his eyes red-rimmed but filled with a light I hadn't seen in them since before my mother died. "I am so sorry, Scarlett," he whispered, his voice raw with pain and regret. "For everything. For being so blind, so proud. For letting my fear. I thought I had lost you forever. I never stopped thinking about you." I couldn't speak, just nodded, the tears still flowing. Ryan, who had quietly come to stand beside me, his presence a steady comfort, watched the scene unfold with a mixture of surprise and compassion. I turned to him, taking his hand, needing him there. "Dad," I said, my voice thick with emotion but firm. "This is Ryan, my husband." Arthur turned his gaze to Ryan, the man he had once dismissed, the man who had loved and supported me when he had not. There was no trace of the old arrogance, only humility and a deep, quiet respect in his eyes. He extended his hand to Ryan. "Ryan," he said, his voice softer now. "Thank you. Thank you for taking care of her when I failed." Ryan shook his hand, his grip warm and steady. "It's an honor, Mr. Montero. Scarlett is the strongest person I know." Then, the most important introduction. Hope, who had been standing shyly behind Ryan, peeking out from behind his leg, stepped forward hesitantly. She looked up at the tall man, her eyes wide with curiosity. I knelt down, putting an arm around her, my heart overflowing. "And Dad," I said, my voice filled with love and pride, "this is your granddaughter. This is Hope." Arthur's gaze fell upon the little girl, the living embodiment of the life I had built, the future he had almost missed. His eyes widened further, and a fresh wave of tears spilled down his cheeks. He knelt slowly, his movements stiff with age and emotion, and looked into Hope's innocent face. She smiled shyly at him, a small, trusting smile. He reached out a hand, his fingers gentle as he touched her cheek. "Hope," he whispered, the name a fragile echo of the past, a tribute to the woman he had loved, and a promise of a future he hadn't dared to imagine. "You have your grandmother's eyes." In that moment, standing on the edge of that stage, surrounded by the life I had built, the man I loved, the daughter who was my world, and the father I had thought lost forever, 15 years of pain and separation melted away, replaced by the overwhelming, messy, beautiful reality of a family finding its way back to each other, guided by the light of a simple song and the enduring power of love. The 6 months following that extraordinary night were a period of cautious, heartfelt rebuilding. It wasn't a sudden, magical fix. The scars of 15 years of silence and separation ran deep, but there was a shared, quiet determination to heal, to understand, and to forge a new path forward. Arthur was transformed. The hard shell of pride and control had cracked, revealing a man burdened by regret, but desperate for connection. He didn't try to dictate or control. Instead, he listened. He listened to my story, to the struggles Ryan and I had faced, to the quiet triumphs of building a life from nothing. He saw the strength it had taken, the resilience I had inherited from my mother, and he finally understood the depth of the love that had led me to choose a different path. His relationship with Hope blossomed beautifully. He was the doting grandfather, showering her with affection and quiet attention. He read her stories, taught her simple card games, and listened with rapt attention to her childish chatter. Seeing his face light up when she entered the room, seeing the genuine joy he found in her presence, was a source of profound healing for me. He was making up for lost time, not just with her, but with the years he had missed being a father and a grandfather. The dynamic between Arthur and Ryan evolved from hesitant respect to genuine warmth. Arthur saw the integrity and quiet strength in Ryan, the steady love and support he provided for me and Hope. He recognized the value of hard work, the kind he himself had prided himself on in building his empire. But he saw it now without the filter of class prejudice. One afternoon, Arthur visited Ryan at the garage. He didn't just observe from a distance. He rolled up his sleeves, asked questions about the mechanics, showed a genuine interest in the intricacies of the business Ryan was building. A few weeks later, Arthur approached Ryan not with a handout, but with a proposition, a partnership, a significant investment to expand the garage, to modernize it, to give Ryan the resources he needed to grow his business exponentially, while still maintaining his autonomy and vision. It was a gesture of respect, an acknowledgement of Ryan's capability and worth, a true partnership built on mutual regard, not just a father-in-law helping his daughter's husband. Arthur also quietly established a foundation in my brother Pablo's name, dedicated to providing medical assistance to children from low-income families, ensuring they received the care they needed regardless of their parents' ability to pay. It was a private act of remembrance and atonement, a way of honoring the son he had lost, and using his vast resources for a purpose that aligned with the compassion I had shown in helping Andrew. The most poignant moment of our renewed family came 6 months after the reunion. Arthur invited us back to the mansion, not for a formal event, but for a simple family dinner. The house felt different this time, warmer, less like a museum and more like a home. He had brought my mother's piano back from storage, placing it in the living room where it had always been. After dinner, as the evening settled in, Arthur quietly gestured towards the piano. My heart swelled. I sat down on the bench, the familiar keys cool under my fingertips. Hope, sensing the significance of the moment, climbed onto the bench beside me, her small hand finding mine. Together, we began to play and sing that song, my mother's song. The simple melody filled the grand living room, the same room where my father and I had had our final, shattering confrontation years ago. As our voices mingled, a blend of my adult voice and Hope's sweet, clear child's voice, I looked at my father. He sat in his armchair, his head tilted back, his eyes closed. Tears streamed down his face, silent and constant, but his expression was one of profound peace. These weren't tears of pain or regret anymore, but of healing, acceptance, and a quiet, deep joy. It felt as though my mother's spirit was truly present in the room, her melody weaving through the air, wrapping us all in a blanket of love and memory. The song, which had once represented the pain of loss and separation, now symbolized our family's journey back to each other. A circle finally closed. Broken and scattered by loss and pride, we were finally whole again, bound by forgiveness, understanding, and the enduring, beautiful harmony of a simple song that had guided us home. Did my story move you? Leave a like, and tell us in the comments which part made you cry the most. Subscribe to our channel and share this video with someone special who needs to remember the power of forgiveness. Another story of love and reunion will appear on screen. Don't miss it.